The Panthers, as they imagined themselves coming out of the bye week. We talked about this yesterday. They're getting healthier. One would think that means they're getting better. Their young guys are getting older. One would think that means they're getting better. The young player takeover is continuing. The Panthers have kind of a tough decision. And Panther fans, to a lesser extent, have a similar tough decision. Dan Morgan and the Carolina Panthers have to decide whether they want to win or not. Kind of crazy to say out loud. They have to decide whether they want. What means more to you?
Bruh.
What means more to you? Changing the culture and teaching these young guys to scrap and claw and fight and find ways to win and showing them that they can do that, or having a higher draft pick? Both legitimate arguments. I've heard smart people make the decision on both sides. So don't scoff. And to a lesser extent, Panther fans have to decide what you're cheering for. Are you going to be really happy when they win, if they win, or are you going to be a little bummed out? Because I'll tell you right now, I've been a fan of teams where the thing I want to have happen is have them be up 14 in the fourth quarter and lose that game on flukes. I want the ball to bounce off the ref's head and get caught for a touchdown so I can go, well, that doesn't really count. But they win the game, so we keep the draft pick. I want it to be obviously that you're the better team on the field. But hey, I'm interested in the number one overall pick. Like, let's not get crazy. The reason why I think they have to ask this question seriously is because of a revelation I had yesterday in our cubicles. So Dennis, you were back after a week away.
Yeah.
We were catching up on our Panthers talk, as you do when you work in sports media. And we just started looking at the rest of the schedule. What do they have remaining? And kind of reevaluating, doing the thing you do at the beginning of the season where you bring the schedule out and you write a W or an L or a question mark next to every game. And then you're like, all right, I think we're going to win 14 games, right? You're so optimistic at the beginning of the year. And we just started going like, all right, that's a winnable game. All right, I bet you they win one of those two. All right, I bet you they could win that one. Now that so-and-so's on IR, that one becomes winnable. And the more and more we counted, the more and more we talked it out, the number of possible wins got surprisingly high, especially when you consider they already have 3 in the bank. You look at it and you go, well, okay, Dallas without Dak is not scaring anybody.
They stink.
They could win that one. Tampa, although they have Baker playing well early in the year, I mean, they've lost kind of a bunch in a row here.
Mike Evans has been out.
Although he's back practicing, said today he's going to play. But still, 1 out of 2, you play them twice. Could you win 1 out of 2?
Yeah.
All right, I see that. You look at could you sneak an Atlanta win? Atlanta's been getting smacked around by some bad teams. That's possible. All of a sudden you start counting, you're like, there's 3 or 4 potential wins here. And if you surprise somebody, if you catch Tampa on 2 bad days and you win them both. If you catch the Eagles on a day where Jalen Hurts forgets how to protect the football. If you I don't know, shock the world this week against the Chiefs. 4 or 5? Sounds ridiculous. Like bold-faced on the surface, there's 0% chance in my brain that the Panthers are going to win 7 games. But you look at it and you're like, that's only 4 more from here, and I see 4 winnable games. And then I went, I don't even think you'd want to do that. 4, if you win 3 games from this point on, you finish with 6 games. It's probably the difference between picking 4th and picking 10th or 11th. It might be the difference between picking 2nd or 3rd and picking 10th. That's a big deal in draft capital. So I've as I often do, try to A, have my own opinion, but B, help you reach yours regardless of whatever that opinion is. Like, you don't have to agree with me. I just hope that you've thought about it. So I have some questions here to help us all make our decisions. And I've framed them as if I'm asking Dan Morgan. Because I don't believe you tank with coaches. I believe you tank with front office. I don't believe you tank with coaches and players. I believe you tank at the front office level. You cut guys. You change up the depth chart kind of so you get more young players out there. And then you tell those young players to do everything they can to win, and you just kind of make it so the talent isn't there to win. So I'm asking Dan Morgan this. Are you in on Bryce Young for next year? Let's start basic. Are you in on Bryce Young as your quarterback for next year? If the answer to that question is yes, go win games. Win as many as you can. Win 3, win 4, win 8 if you can. I don't even know, you 7 left. Win them all. Because you don't need to have the resources to make the big move this offseason. So the 9th pick, you can get an edge rusher at 9. You can get a corner at 9. Maybe not your number 1 pick, but a pretty good one. What about no? Are you in on Bryce Young? If the answer is no, I respond with another question. Do you think, in your heart of hearts, as a GM, as a talent evaluator, you can realistically solve quarterback without high draft capital? Even if you don't want to draft a guy in the top 3, can you get your quarterback without using that as a trade chip, without building value from it? If you think you can, if you have a legitimate plan, if you're higher on Daniel Jones than everybody else, and he's the 4th quarterback with the Giants now, and you think you can get him on the cheap, and he can come in and be your starter and change everything, whatever your plan is, if you don't need that high draft capital, then go win games. Tell Dave Canales, full throttle. Give the ball to Chuba Hubbard 40 times if that's what it takes to win a game. Go teach your guys how to win. But if the answer is no, if you're not in on Bryce Young and you don't have a plan to get a quarterback on the cheap this offseason, if you need high draft capital to solve quarterback, you better tell Chuba Hubbard that he's being shut down for the year. You better call up DJ Wanham and say, hey, man, we're really trying to stop the run today, so don't pin your ears back and get all those quarterback pressures. You better do something. If you need your quarterback, and the only way you think you can pay for it is with a top 5, top 3, top whatever pick, gosh darn it, you better go get that top 3, top 5, top whatever pick. It's similar to the conversation we had earlier about college football. So much of what you want to do lies on the other side of having the right quarterback. So much of what you want to do is just right on the other side of the mountain known as Mount Find a Quarterback. So if you think it's Bryce, you're good, go win. If you think it's not Bryce, you got to start answering real questions. I'll put it this way. I don't think it's Bryce. I like Bryce. He's impressed me with his mental fortitude this year. His ability to stay locked in despite everything going on, that is a admirable trait. I believe if they're going to be a contender, somebody else will be calling the shots at quarterback. So I'm probably leaning towards if you win 7 games, it's going to feel really good, but it's going to slow your rebuild. 3, 4, maybe 5, we can talk. But if you win 4 more from here on out, if you win 3 and you're still gunning, I'm gonna be confused. Thinking about the future. And by the way, as a competitor, I absolutely hate that. As a player, if I were on that team and I had any inclination that was going to happen, I would be bummed. I would understand it's a business and it's not my decision, but I would be bummed.
Yeah, if I'm a player, I don't care about your draft pick.
100%.
I don't care about, like, you pick 12 or pick 7. I don't care. I'm out here to perform and win games. I'm here to take care of myself.
Yep.
Because if you in the front office try and start tanking, you're impacting my life in a negative way. Therefore, I don't like that. That's a bad precedent you want to set in the locker room.
The multiple anonymous Giants have been upset about Daniel Jones getting benched. It's obviously a money decision.
Yeah.
I still think it's the right decision. Because if you are on the hook for $30 million next year, which is what you would be if Daniel Jones got hurt for him at quarterback, you can't really turn the page and go find someone else, and now you're stuck in that situation again. So the return argument that I would give towards those anonymous Giants is if you don't want us to make business decisions, stay mathematically eligible for the playoffs beyond week 11. If you don't want us to tank, win games before we have to make that decision, right? No one would be saying, do the Panthers really want to win if they had 6 wins already? Now, I'm not asking them to be 9-1. I'm asking them to be 6-5.
And I'll look at the front office and say, you guys signed that deal. Don't put that on us. You signed that deal with the injury guarantee. Like, you signed that. You agreed to that. You offered that. You
Yes.
put that on the table. That's on you, not on me.
So you're saying them benching Daniel Jones is upsetting the players, and then the players are saying it's your fault that you signed Daniel Jones?
Well, yeah, well, say like, look, if you're making that decision because of, well, we don't want to guarantee this guy a bunch of money, I'm like, well, that's on you for putting that in the contract. That's not on us as players.
Well, yeah.
That's on you for putting it in. I understand that you're business, but if I'm a player in the locker room, I want to win. If I'm Dave Canales, and the whole thing about this season for me was establishing the culture that you wanted to do, winning is part of that. And you have to teach these guys, doesn't matter what your record is, you got to go out there and work week after week after week. I don't care if this team picks 13th or 7th. Like, you can still find a great player in that situation. 13 or 7, you can still find a great player.
That's simplifying the draft a little too much because you're much more likely to find a great player at 7 than 13.
Yeah, but you know what? We've seen this team draft terribly in the top of the draft before. We've seen this team do that plenty of times in recent history.
We've seen the Panthers go guns blazing to win every game all the way to the end and then be just as bad the next year. So we've seen them draft high and it's not worked out. We've seen them go all out to win games and it didn't change anything the following year. So you can't just eliminate the Panthers from doing anything that hasn't worked in the past or else they're going to do nothing.
Well, I know they tried to do that a couple years ago when Steve Wilkes took over, but then you completely changed coaches. So guess what? You had to completely reset your whole culture and everything, and then you gave up a bunch of draft capital, all that stuff from a previous regime. You know that Dave Canales is going to be your head coach next year. You have to continue to build what he is trying to do, and it starts in the locker room with the guys that you have right now. You have to try and win games. And if I'm a fan as well, seeing 7 years of losing, I want wins. I don't care, hook or by crook. I want to see W's in the win column. That's what I want to see.
I think that's where we're different, and there's nothing wrong with being different. I don't see a ton of difference in my fan happiness between 3 wins and 8 wins.
I want wins.
I see a difference in my fan happiness between playing games that actually matter when it gets cold outside. These games, they don't actually matter when it comes to playoffs and when it comes to championships. That's what
I think
I'm
these
looking for.
games matter for the next several years about establishing your culture.
I agree. I also think the players that are playing in those games next year and their talent level matters as well.
Yeah, but if I got Xavier Legette, Robert Hunt, Jalen Coker, Chuba Hubbard, guys that I know are going to be on this team for the next several years, I don't want them to be around tanking. I don't want them around.
Players never tank.
I don't want them to be around knowing that the franchise is trying to do that. I don't want them around.
I also wouldn't disrespect those guys to think, hey, if we only win one more game from the rest of this point, they're going to show up next year, having forgotten how to win. You're talking about some guys that are, they've been around competitive sports for a long time.
Oh, I know, but this is about a culture you're trying to set.